Welcome back to another episode, everyone. I'm Matt Floyd, and as always, I'm here with Kevin Ross. Kevin, today we're tackling something that's all over the news, all over social media, and frankly causing a lot of anxiety for people, especially retirees and those on fixed incomes.
So you're talking about tariffs, right?
I'm talking about tariffs. And Kevin, I've got to be honest with you. Every time I open Twitter or X, as it's called now, every time I turn on the news, it's the same story. Tariffs are going to destroy the economy. Prices are going to explode. Consumers are going to suffer. That's the drumbeat we're hearing. So help me out here. What am I missing?
So, what you're missing, Matt, is the context of reciprocity. And that's the part that drives me crazy because it's so rarely mentioned in any of these conversations. So here's what they don't tell you. While we're sitting here debating whether to implement a 10% or 25% tariff, China's been charging us all along at 25% on our cars for years.
Really?
The look at this, the EU, it hits us with tariffs on agricultural products. India charges up to 100% on certain goods. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. This isn't us waking up one day and deciding to randomly tax imports for no reason.
Wait, so you're saying other countries are already doing this to us?
Yeah, and they're not just doing this to us, they've been doing it for decades. The American farmers, manufacturers, exporters, these people have been competing with one hand tied behind their backs for a generation or so. So when you hear about new US tariffs, it's not some radical departure from free trade. It's often just a leveling of a playing field that's been tilted against us for a very, very long time.
Okay, but here's the pushback I'd hear from someone watching the financial media right now. Fine, Kevin, but two wrongs don't make a right. If other countries hurt their consumers with tariffs, why should we hurt ours?
Well, that's a great question. And this gets into the nuance that's completely missing from the conversation. First, the assumption that tariffs automatically hurt consumers in a straightforward, permanent way is exactly what we need to unpack today. And we'll get there in a minute, I promise. But second, and this is critical, trade isn't about moral philosophy, it's about negotiating leverage.
Meaning what exactly?
So, meaning when you're the only country playing by free trade rules while everyone else protects their industries, you're not noble, you're getting played. You're leaving money on the table, you're losing jobs, you're weakening your negotiating position. And these tariffs, they're often a negotiating tool.
No, negotiating tool.
Absolutely. Look at the trade deals that are renegotiated in recent years. The tariffs were threatened, tariffs were implemented, and then boom, suddenly other countries came to the table with concessions. Mexico, Canada, China, all of them made adjustments. That's not isolationism, Matt. It's the strategic policy.
So it's chess, not checkers.
Exactly. And for retirees who are worried about American economic strength, long term, having fair trade agreements, truly fair agreements matters a lot more than a temporary adjustment period that comes with implementing these policies.
Okay, so that's the geopolitical context. But I think what people really want to know is how does this affect me? How does this affect my wallet? Because that's what the scary headlines are focused on.
Yeah, and that's exactly where we're going next because the way tariffs are reported versus how they actually work, there's a massive gap there. And understanding that gap is really everything. So Matt, I want you to imagine two scenarios here. Humor me for a second.
I'm listening.
In scenario one, you buy a car and the price includes a one-time $2,000 fee. You pay it once, you drive it off the lot, it's done. You never think about it again. Kind of seems like that's what COVID was right
I know.
now. And then in scenario two, your car payment goes up by $50 every single month forever. It's automatic, it compounds, it never stops. So which one sounds worse to you?
Well, obviously the second one, the compounds. I mean, that adds up over time. I mean, $50 a month to $600 a year, and it just keeps going. The one-time fee, that's just a fee. You deal with it and you just move right on.
That's exactly right. And now I want you to apply that same logic to tariffs versus inflation. A tariff is a scenario one. It's a one-time import duty. If a company pays 10% more to bring goods into the country, that's a one-time cost adjustment. It might affect the price you see on the shelf initially, but it's not a recurring compounding increase.
And inflation, that's the second scenario.
Right. Inflation is persistent. It's compounding. It silently erodes your purchasing power year after year after year. It's that $50 a month increase that never stops.
Well, okay, hold on. So I've heard economists on TV, I've read articles, they say that tariffs cause inflation. Are you saying that that's not true?
I'm saying the relationship is far more complex than the headline suggests. Can tariffs contribute to a one-time price level adjustment? Sure, absolutely. Do they cause persistent ongoing inflation like loose monetary policy or supply chain disruptions? The data does not support that.
Can you break that down for us just a little bit more?
Sure. So during periods when the US implemented significant tariffs in recent years, we saw some price adjustments in specific categories like washing machines, certain electronics, things like that. But overall, inflation remained relatively controlled until other factors like pandemic stimulus and
Hmm.
supply shock came into play. Those were real drivers of sustained inflation.
So you're drawing a distinction between the price increase and inflation.
Yeah, precisely, Matt. And this is what matters enormously for people on fixed incomes. If a washing machine costs 8% more because of a tariff, that's a one time decision. Do I pay it now or do I buy it now? Do I wait? Do I look for an alternative? It's a decision point, it's manageable.
But with inflation,
But if your grocery bill, your utilities, your health care costs are all rising 3, 4, 5% every single year, because of monetary inflation, that's the real threat to your retirement security. That's what eats away at a fixed income. That's what makes it harder and harder to maintain your standard of living.
yeah, that's actually a really important distinction that I haven't heard explained, that way before. So when someone on a fixed income is trying to figure out what to worry about, inflation should be way higher on the list than tariffs.
By a mile, by a mile. Man, here's the other piece that doesn't get talked about enough. I think businesses respond to tariffs in ways that often mitigate that consumer impact.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but what do you mean by that?
So they might absorb some of the cost to stay competitive. They might shift sourcing to countries that don't have the tariffs. They might find efficiencies in their supply chain. They might renegotiate with their suppliers. It's not automatic that 100% of a tariff gets passed directly on to you as the consumer. In fact, research shows it often much less than that.
So there's some flexibility in how businesses respond.
Exactly. But inflation hits everyone continuously without mercy. Remember that car payment analogy? That's inflation. It just keeps going up and there's no negotiating with it. There's no finding alternatives. It's relentless.
And you can't opt out of it.
Unfortunately, you can't opt out. You're in it whether you like it or not. So when I hear people panicking about tariffs, but not paying attention to monetary policy, not paying attention to federal spending, not paying attention to the things that actually drive sustained inflation. It frustrates me because they're worried about the wrong thing.
It's like, worrying about a mosquito bite on your broken leg.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You've always got those good analogies. And look, I'm not saying tariffs have zero impact, okay? I'm saying to let's keep it in perspective and understand what we're actually dealing with.
Okay, Kevin, let's get super practical because I know we have listeners right now who are retirees, who are on fixed incomes, who are hearing this conversation and thinking, okay, I'm feeling a bit better about the tariff panic, but I still want to know, what should I actually expect? What might cost more? What won't? How do I plan around this? You got your crystal ball over there?
Yeah, those are unusually smart questions here. And this is where we need to get really specific. First, let's talk about what categories might see price adjustments. Okay, electronics, certain appliances, some imported goods. These could have price changes if they're subject to tariffs.
Right.
If you're in the market for a new TV, a new laptop, certain types of furniture, you might see some movement there.
So those are the categories that we want to watch.
Right. But here's what most people don't realize, and this is huge: food, energy, healthcare, housing. The biggest components of most retirees' budgets, these are largely domestic or subject to completely different dynamics. Your grocery bill, it isn't moving because of tariffs on Chinese electronics.
So the things that matter most day to day might not even be affected at all.
Yeah, or much less than you think. And here's where strategic thinking comes in, I believe. If you know you'll need a new refrigerator in the next year or two, and you see manufacturers announcing price increases, you have information to make a timing decision. Maybe you buy it now instead of waiting.
Right.
But that's different from panicking and thinking your entire cost of living is about to spiral out of control.
So it's about being informed, not reactive.
Exactly. It's about making conscious decisions based on good information, not emotional decisions based on scary headlines. And Matt, let me give you a real example here. I'm not going to use names, obviously, but client came in last year who was convinced tariffs were going to destroy their retirement.
And what happened?
So they wanted to make some major portfolio changes. He was talking about moving everything to cash. He was in true panic mode. He was ready to completely up in his financial plan that we spent years building. And I said, Let's slow down here for a minute. Let's look at your actual spending. Let's look at what you actually buy month to month." And you know what we found?
What?
Less than 5% of his annual spending was on items that would potentially be affected by the tariffs that we were discussing. 5%. Everything else, his housing, his food, his utilities, his healthcare, his insurance, none of it was going to change because of tariffs.
So he was about to blow up his entire financial plan over 5% of his whole spending budget.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by keeping perspective. Now, I've helped him adjust his timeline. I'm replacing his car. He's thinking about trading it in, and we moved that up slightly to avoid potential price increases. But that was a tactical decision, you see, not a panic driven overhaul, which is how he showed up.
That's a great example. So, what about the bigger picture? Like, should someone adjust their retirement withdrawal strategy because of tariffs?
Well, Matt, in over 2 decades of advising people on financial planning, I can tell you this without hesitation: tariffs don't even crack the top five concerns for retirement securities. They just don't.
Well, what does crack the top five?
Healthcare costs, that inflation, that's number one with a bullet on it, right?
Yeah, and the older you get, the more you need.
Exactly. Tax policy changes, portfolio volatility, longevity risk, long term care needs. These are what keep me up at night for my clients. These are the things that could truly derail a retirement plan.
And so, tariffs, I mean, what would you say those are? If they're not a top five, there's nothing to worry
Well, I
about.
think
But
they're a consideration,
yeah,
sure, but they're a minor one in the context of comprehensive financial planning. And here's the empowering part, Matt. If you have a well diversified portfolio, if you plan for inflation, real inflation, not a one time price adjustment, you have flexibility in your spending. You have proper insurance coverage. Then the tariffs are just
yeah, that's just
noise.
noise. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not even a crisis. They're a data point. You acknowledge them, you make a minor adjustment maybe if necessary, and you move on. The people who get hurt are the ones who panic and make emotional decisions based on incomplete information. And unfortunately, they're getting inundated in a lot of the media platforms.
Right. So that's like your client who almost moved everything to cash.
Exactly like that. And think about what would have happened if they'd done that. Well, he would have missed tremendous market gain here in 25.
Yeah.
He would have locked in losses. He would have created a tax nightmare for himself, all because of a fear that wasn't grounded in his actual financial reality.
So the message is stay informed, keep perspective, and stick to your plan.
Yeah, that's it. And if you don't have a plan or you want someone to help you stress test your retirement against all these These risks, not just the headline risk, but the actual risks that matter. That's where working with the knowledgeable advisor makes all the sense and all the
And
difference.
and that's not a sales pitch. That's just reality.
Right.
Because trying to navigate all of this stuff on your own, especially when you're bombarded with conflicting information.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. That's what we're trying to communicate here today. You don't have to figure all this out by yourself, and you definitely do not have to panic.
Right. And if you're sitting at home trying to figuring this out all by yourself, you should be panicking, and that's when you need to call a professional.
Exactly, exactly right. So Matt, let's bring this home here. What are 3 things we want people to walk away with today?
So first, context matters. Other countries have been hitting us with tariffs for decades, probably centuries, actually.
Yeah.
When you go back all the way, this isn't new. We're just finally responding, kind of in kind. The mentality of we're better than them. We don't have to charge tariffs. You can throw that out the window. So the playing field has been tilted, and we're just trying to level it.
Yeah, and second, understand the difference between a one-time price adjustment and the persistent inflation. One is manageable. It's a $2,000 fee you pay once and forget about it. The other is a retirement killer, right? It's that $50 a month that increases that never stops compounding.
And third, and I think this is the big one, don't let headlines hijack your financial plan. Tariffs are a footnote compared to the real risks. Inflation, like you said, healthcare costs, that's the number one that everybody needs to be worried about. Tax policy and, going it alone without a comprehensive strategy.
Yeah, it's a perfect summary. Look, our goal today wasn't to tell you tariffs are perfect or that there's zero impact at all. Our goal was to cut through the noise and give you the complete picture, grounded in data, not in panic, because that's what real financial security looks like: information, perspective, and a plan you can actually trust.
And if you don't have that plan yet, we can help. Financial advisors, if you're listening and you want powerful resources, to better serve your clients, tools, the strategies, the insights, everything you need to elevate your practice, head over to advisorrescue.net. We've built that specifically for you.
Yeah, and if you're a listener who needs guidance on planning your financial future, whether it's retirement planning, income strategies, or just a second opinion on what you're currently doing, go to planliferight.com. You can book a free consultation, use our powerful calculators that are on our site to run your own numbers, or even purchase life insurance directly on that site. We've got the best rates in the country. And here's the cool part: you don't even have to talk to anyone if you don't want to. It's all available right there online.
Because at the end of the day, life happens fast.
So plan your life right.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.